¿Cómo están todos aquí? Qué gusto verlos. It's such a pleasure seeing you guys here. This is such an honor to be able to present this guest that we have right now, which I will tell you shortly who it is. This will be a conversation with Alice Bagg. Presented by Red Bull Music Academy Festival in Los Angeles, presented in partnership with One National Gay and Lesbian Archives at the USC Libraries and Access Mundo Queer Networks in Chicago, Los Angeles. So how's everyone feeling tonight? Alice? Oh my gosh. I stole it from you.
Bandida.
How are you? ¿Cómo estás? Dios mío.
I am good. I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I am feeling a little bit sick, so if I throw up, we decided that we would work it into the performance. Just be prepared.
Yeah. You have to roll with the punches?
Yeah.
So basically here, this is a living legend. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I know how hard it could be sometimes to... They're not just compliments, it's truth. This is part of history. She's a historical figure in the punk scene, in the feminist scene, and basically in the community.
Thank you.
She's inspired many people to stand up for themselves and to believe that silence is not the only way, that there's more things in this earth than to keep it locked inside. And you're an inspiration, and if it weren't for you, we wouldn't be here, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Alice Bagg was 19 years old when she became the voice and frontwoman of one of Los Angeles' most surreal and punk acts, the Baggs. Bagg played a crucial role during the early years of LA punk, contributor to the feminist movement and community by being an educator and giving endlessly a bit of herself, not only to the movement, but also to motherhood. Bagg, a Chicana from East Los Angeles, used her music to traverse issues of gender, race, and class, which she would later write about in her in-depth and in her 2011 memoir, Violence Girl, which is a great freaking book. All the books that you've written are amazing. I'm sorry, I'm fangirling, but that's a good thing because, when do you really get to fangirl in this way, right? Okay. So
Thank you. We had our fangirl interactions yesterday because we were both very nervous about meeting each other. So you missed it. You missed the part where we were constantly hugging each other. It's like, I'm such a fan.
We'd be in the middle of a conversation and be like, okay, no, you know what? Come on, girl. Let's get up here. So, Alicia. Así te llamas, de verdad,
yep.
Alicia. And basically, because my real name is Teresa. And so throughout the times that when you're growing up in East Los Angeles, at what point did you realize, okay, I have to convert my name Alicia to Alice? Was it a cultural thing, or how did it come about?
Well, it was the constant mispronunciation of my name. It just bugged me when they called me Alicia, and I knew that's not my name. My name is Alicia. And then I finally had a teacher who just completely changed it to Alice. And she's like, that's the American version of your name. And I'm like, okay, well, actually, Alice is okay, because I've read Alice in Wonderland and all these I had other connections to it. But Alicia just sounded so foreign that I didn't want people to, and I still get that, you know? Really? Yeah, I still get that, because it's spelled the same way, and a lot of people pronounce their name that way, so. And you probably have the same.
Oh, yeah, they say, oh, Teresa. Oh, it sounds like a wet dog's name.
Yeah. Wait, like a wet dog?
Like a wet dog. I don't know. Kids are very poetic, I guess. Yeah, I think he was probably reading a lot of Bukowski at the time, that 5-year-old boy. But yeah, I completely relate to that you feel disconnected from that name. But eventually, you have to make it your own.
Yeah.
That you're forming part of a different culture, and Terry came about as well. So that's why I guess Terry, Alice. But there's still names that you find in a way that you relate to, right? In a way throughout the time.
Yeah, I feel like there is a part of me that's Alice Bagg, and I also feel that I can also step into a different scenario, like with my family, and if they call me Alicia, it's cool because that's what I grew up hearing.
And it's part of your roots,
Yeah, it's
too.
part of my roots, yeah.
Exactly. And I know that you've probably been asked this lots of times, but do you feel like sometimes you're divided into three people? Alicia Armendariz, Alicia Velasquez, and Alice Bag, or do you see them all as the same person?
No, and I actually have I used to be a teacher, so sometimes I bump into students and they're like, Miss Armendariz, or, Miss Velasquez, or just Miss.
and so finally, when you were in East Los Angeles, what was the overall feeling back then in the day when you were growing up in it? Because it's a little different than it is now, or is it big difference?
You mean in school or
in
my
school,
neighborhood?
In school, in your neighborhood. Let's start with your neighborhood. Let's start with the essence of
I
where
grew
you grew
up in East LA in a neighborhood that was mostly Mexican American and Mexican immigrants. So I really, as I was growing up, I really didn't know that there was another world out there. Like my whole world was, people who spoke Spanglish. And at home we spoke only Spanish, and we watched only Spanish language movies as a family, and Spanish language like telenovelas were like a ritual at night. But every now and then, like when I get home from school, I'd watch something goofy like Gilligan's Island or something like that. And that shaped my understanding of what the outside world was like. But I feel like I had a very insulated experience because everybody around me, except for the people who were like the authority figures, my teachers didn't live in East LA. My teachers came in from other suburbs, and most of them didn't speak any Spanish at all. And my doctor didn't speak Spanish, and the people that were in positions of authority were either white or non-Spanish speaking other ethnicities, but not ever people that were like me.
And you picked that up immediately as a little
that
child.
I did notice, yes, I did notice.
And did this curiosity, when you picked up on it, did it inspire some type of anger or just even more curiosity as to why, or all types of emotions? What did you feel?
I think what I felt was like, oh, maybe that's not open to us. Like maybe those people are smarter than, I think I really thought maybe, that was not a possibility for me, or maybe like people were teachers because they were like, I don't know. I almost felt like they were being charitable by coming to my neck of the woods, which was not as fancy as where they had grown up. And I felt like, oh, they're being so nice, coming and doing this nice stuff for us. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I really started to think that I wasn't that I didn't have power. At that point in my life, I really felt like I didn't have power. It would take a little while for me to discover.
And music that helped you discover that power? Or would you think it was something
music
else
was
before?
part of it, but music happened in elementary school, so there was a part of me that felt accepted by my friends, and even though they were not really friends, but my classmates, right? Because I had a mentor who was my music teacher, who actually got me the first job I ever had was singing for bilingual cartoons. But I think the first moment that I realized that as a Latina or a Chicana or a brown person, because I don't think I even knew what a Chicana was at that point, was that when I was 11 years old, I got to go to the Chicano moratorium. And it was the first time that I'd realized, oh, you know what? We're not being treated fairly. And there's a group of us, and we're all gonna get together and do something about it. So that was the awakening of feeling like I really do have power. I just haven't figured out how to tap into it.
Oh, amen. Yeah. Hey, women. and so when you finally, when you figured out that there's an antena, una antenita que puedo utilizar para, pues, to express myself, did you know right away, this is what I'm going to do with my life? Maybe not in a tangible form, but you knew that somehow this little antenna that you had, that you finally figured that through the inspiration, that, wow, okay, this is going to get me through many obstacles. Did you have any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, there were all kinds of clues, I think, but they had to come together, you know. Like if I go back to my childhood, I had a very supportive father who told me, like, you can be anything, but it was kind of like a fantasy, you know, thinking that I could be anything, that I could be, he would tell me, you can be president of the United States. And there was a part of me that believed it, but there was also a part of me that didn't see it, you know, that's like, there's nobody up there like that looks like me, you know. So it was hard, it was like trying to understand how it was possible when you looked outside, it wasn't there. You know, and that's still something that happens, you know, that's still like, I still look and go like, you know, where's our representation? I know that we should have it. I know that we're powerful enough to get it, but it's not there yet.
How much of a progress do you think is left to be done for women in music? And not just women, but just, you know, the minorities.
I think until we stop like noticing it, you know, until you see it so much. I think when I was involved in the punk scene, a lot of people like, you know, asked me about that time and like how many women and how many people of color and how many gay people were involved in it. And it's always like, oh, well, you know what? I didn't even notice because it was so integrated. It was everybody like, yeah, everybody was working together that you didn't even stop to think about it. You didn't have to make a statement because you were living that kind of like everybody working together. So when we get to that point where we don't see like when we don't have to notice, hey, there's women in that band, or, you know, oh, look, that's a really good female drummer. You know, it's like, why do you have to point that out? It's like, oh, look, that's a really great drummer and she has 2 eyes, or he has 2 eyes. No, it's like it shouldn't be an issue.
Honestly, does it tire you personally when in interviews people ask you, oh, so being a woman, how did it feel like? Does that irritate you, or do you feel proud to be able to express that, or does it depend?
I'm always happy to talk to people, and I always feel like it's a privilege to be in a position where somebody cares what you have to say.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because I've noticed a lot of people sometimes even walk off interviews when they're asked, oh, so how does it feel to be a woman in a band? And I guess it's to a point that so many of us have had it. They're like, you know what? Just work on your questions first or something, and then they walk off.
Oh yeah, I get fed up with that too. You know, I get fed up when people like invite me to be part of something, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what? We're almost done with our documentary, but we don't have enough women, so we want you to come in for half an hour and we're going to tell you exactly which questions we want you to answer. So it's not like you're telling your story. It's like you're supporting their story, and they already are setting you up with the answers so that you can just say what they want. They might as well give you a script, you know?
Exactly.
So that's frustrating to me. I hate like the idea that I'm anybody's token ever. Like, you know.
Amarillismo, no? They want to use
Yeah.
you for something, yeah, to fill in the story in there. And
Yeah, so that they can say like, oh yeah, we were inclusive. We asked everybody.
And I remember reading from your memoir about your earliest, happiest childhood memory when you're going down the sled. And it moved me because, in a way, their kids were there playing as well, even though you didn't really feel a connection with them. You still involved yourself socially by joining them, going down the sled on the snow sled. What other memories of that style do you have when you were little?
It was a dirt sled. It's like we're going down this dirt hill. Yes. Yeah, you know, I felt really disconnected from other people when I was little. I think it was a kind of trauma because I grew up in an abusive household, and I feel a lot of the time that I withdrew, and when I was in school, I really had a hard time making friends. So that was the first time that I remember like other kids playing with me and including me, and it's just a really good memory because I felt part of something.
Yeah, they were including you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're included, you include them too. It's a two-way street. It encourages the both ends to open.
Yeah.
And now we're going to the different extreme, because you are known to be a daughter of duality, where in person you're extremely shy. Even I could even dare to say shy, but very open. But on stage is also another extreme where the animal in you comes out. What
You would know, right?
Oh my! Oh my! What sad memories inspired part of that fire in you? Because now we talked about the happy, but now it's something sad that.
Yeah, I think it's the growing up in an abusive household where I felt like I didn't have a voice. I felt like when I tried to defend my mother, I was just like swatted away. So I feel like when I got on stage, all that feeling of not being able to express myself came out, and it came out in a rage. You know, that was only partially, I was only partially aware of it. A lot of times I'd be on stage and I was like, I really was like Alice Bag, some other like entity, not really, you know, like not really conscious of my movements or my singing or my performance. It was, in fact, you know, it wasn't like a performance. It was just like a state of being. You know, do you have that too? Like where you feel like you go into.
You live in it, right?
You're living it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not performing now because you haven't pre-planned it. It's not like you're backstage. All right, what move am I gonna do? Okay, on this minute,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. But no, none of that happens. It comes your music and your body collide.
Yes,
Yeah.
and all your emotions and everything just spill out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I get that from you too. You know, when you're on stage, it's like it's just raw energy, and it's not rehearsed. You're not acting. You're living it, and that's the connection, and that's the connection you get from like a live audience too. It's like they're with you, and they're stuck.
Thank you so much, Alice. You mentioned just a little bit now about the sad memories about living in an abusive household, and I completely relate to you, two parallel lives that have that in common. What's your advice? How did you get through it when you're a kid and you feel so useless and you don't know how to ask for help? You can much less ask for help, much less understand it yourself. How do you get through something like that?
I think it's hard when you're a kid, you know, because you don't know that. I mean, I remember my mother, actually, who was the victim of the abuse, saying, "Don't say anything because we don't want your father to be taken off to jail because he has to go to work and we have to pay the rent." And it was like, so it affected us in so many ways that she actually rationalized it so that he wasn't taken away. So it was weird because it was this weird situation where I felt complicit, you know?
But now you know that's not the case.
No, now I know
Okay.
that's not the case. But I think now I also understand abuse as something that's not just, you know, between two people, but it's like it affects whole families. And I think it's something that, you know, when you are dealing with it, if you're someone who knows someone who's in that situation, you have to take into consideration everyone that's living in that household because they're all being affected. And I specifically remember my mother telling me, I don't want to get a divorce from your father because you need a father, you know, like, so I really felt guilty about that because I felt like she's staying in this abusive relationship for me, and I never wanted that.
And you didn't know how to process that at the
Yeah,
moment?
no, I know. I felt guilty, you know, like, so.
And maybe in her mind, because she was from a different generation, it was like, no, but this is good. I mean,
Of course, yes. She
Uh-huh.
was doing it for me. She genuinely believed that, and she also genuinely believed that she couldn't just leave, that she believed divorce was a bad thing. and she couldn't just leave and get it into a different situation. She had to like figure out how to make that situation work.
From Catholic family, right?
Yes,
Catholic family, yeah, and that's another double texture and weights on top of it, right? Because you don't want to feel guilty also for that. You know, that the divorce, the big D. That's it's prohibited. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, completely.
So we have to, you know, I think as a society, we have to find a way to like, you know, not make people who are in these situations feel ashamed for being caught, being trapped in it. Because I feel like, you know, I think there was a certain amount of shame, you know, like, oh, I did something to make myself get beaten up, and now I haven't filed charges, you know, and you feel like there's victim shame, which is horrible, because what you want to do is like say, no, let's talk about it, let's figure out how we can get out of the situation, how we can change the situation, how the whole family can get some kind of help.
And once you get the help, the first important thing is that to detach yourself from the shame, you'd say, right?
Yeah.
Just detach from yourself from that emotion and acknowledge that it's a complete different emotion that you were not born with. And as long as you're aware, I mean, it's a long process, of course, in the working, but awareness is the first step, you would say?
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it took years and years of not even knowing what the hell was going on with me. What am I angry about? What am I, like, I would go on stage and people would say, like, you know, you were looking at me and I thought you wanted to kill me, you know, you were so mad at me. And I'm like, I wasn't mad at you. Like, and I wasn't even there. I was like, I was into the song, I was into the performance, I was in the moment, and I wasn't thinking about anything, but it was coming out, you know, it comes out of your pores. And when I started writing my book, that's when it first, when I first realized, oh, all this stuff is right there. All I had to do was just, you know, you scratch a little bit and it's right there, right under the surface, and it all came like just flowing. Yeah.
And it's because you're reliving it.
Yeah.
And especially if you're writing it, you're going into detail, and you have to edit it later to reread it again, so you're constantly reliving it. But did it help you find closure?
I think it helped me understand myself, and yeah, I guess some kind of closure. And I do think that, like you said, I actually did relive it, because when I was a little kid, I think some kind of defense mechanism popped in, and I didn't fully live it. Like, I feel like I almost like went into some other place, because I didn't remember this stuff for years and years and years. And then it came, when it came back, it was like, you know, it was visceral. You know, I remember feeling nauseous. I remember I couldn't stop crying, and just like, it was very, very like physical memory of all those things.
And when this happened, the physical part of it, afterwards, did you feel a sense of calm after the waves passed through?
It took a little while, and I know that we talked a little bit about how when my mother, both my parents have passed away, but when my mother was still alive, I did an interview that aired on television, and where I talked about my father's abuse, and one of my nieces marched over to my mother's house and said, "Why is Alicia bad-mouthing my grandfather?" And my mother said, "Because it's true, this is what happened." And my niece is like, "That's not the grandfather that I know. He's not like that." And she's like, "No, he's not like that anymore. He's a completely different man. He's changed. You know, he's, but I'm so glad that I had that moment where my mother said, yes, this happened, because otherwise they're gonna think, oh, Alicia's just like making all this stuff up, you know, like she's, and I think that happens to other people sometimes. They tell their story, and unless you had a witness there, you know, somebody like thinks, oh no, they just want attention, you know, they just like.
Yeah, or some part of doubt, or some kind of doubt. Yeah, and that's the great thing, that you had your mother's support, even if it's something like, again, going back to, especially in Latino culture and Catholicism, shame is a big factor of what we have on our shoulders. So that's amazing that your mother was able to say, no, 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 you know what? She's not lying. She's telling the truth, and I'm going to stand next to her. Es mi hija y dice la verdad. And
Yeah.
now this is where what I want to ask you. What do you do when the people in your own family, like your niece, well, I'm guessing, you know, that's part of the process. There's healing now. There's some communication. But what if that person refuses to listen to you and doesn't want to support you? Do you still speak about it either way, or do you wait until you get your mother's or your father's or your grandmother's blessing to talk about the abuse that you endured?
I just do what's right for me, you know. So if I have something I need to speak about, I speak about it. And if somebody supports me, that's wonderful. I try and surround myself with people who trust me and believe me. And there's always going to be people who doubt and who question what I say, and that's their choice. But it's not going to affect me. Thank you.
And so tell us about Punkchera music.
Punkcheras. Punkcheras was something that I started doing with my friend Lisa Flores. We were in a band together. Thank you. We were in a band together called Stay at Home Bomb. Is Eva Gardner here? There she is. Eva was in that band too. And after we got done doing Stay at Home Bomb, we started playing a little bit of acoustic music, and we're like, oh, you know what? I like these rancheras, but you know, I'm so into punk that I want it, like, and also I think part of it was the way I strummed my guitar. It was like, it didn't feel like a ranchera song. It always, no matter what I try to play, it always has that punk feel, just because my guitar playing tends to lean that way. So they turned into punkcheras. And also my singing is that way, you know, my singing is kind of rah. So.
But it's also very dynamic, I think, because you can go from to very complex melodies and what inspired you to go towards also the catchy yet accessible yet complex melodies? Was that from the ranchera music, or was it from other?
What kind of melody?
Because you had like some really cool, because you can do the versatile. You're a versatile vocalist.
Oh, thank you.
And so, what inspired you to be that? David Bowie's one of them, I read, but.
When I was growing up, I was a big fan of Rafael. I don't know if any of you. There's some people I've heard Rafael. Oh my God, he's such a great singer, and he was so emotive, and he was so passionate. And I mean, I kind of see ties with him and like maybe Juan Gabriel. You know, there's like that sort of like very like you really feel the music. So that was a big influence on me. I also was a big Joselito fan, which is do you know who Joselito is? He was a teen Spanish singing movie star who I had a crush on. Yeah.
Would you like some water?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, here. Just realize that hydration is very important.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome. And
that's okay. It's all right. You're gonna. Oh wait, we're gonna cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you. Y'all have a drink. Stay hydrated. Can they have water? Can you guys have water? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll have a drink for you.
Yeah. And so you were talking a little bit earlier about the process of writing Violence Girl. But what was the one moment that you've decided, I want to write a book? Like before the whole entire process, what inspired that?
You know, it was a drunk night, and I was talking to some friends of mine who were working on a play called The Barber of East LA. They had an acting group called Buchlalis de Panochtitlan, which is a great name, and they asked me to tell them stories about growing up in East LA in the 60s and 70s. And they were buying me drinks, so I was telling them stories. And they're like, these are great stories, you should write a book. And I went home that night and I told my husband, who's sitting over there, and he said, I always tell you should write a book. I've been telling you for years and you never listen to me because you only listen to your girlfriends. And then I didn't think anything of it, of the conversation. Then in the morning, he left the laptop on our kitchen table, and it was open, and he'd set up a blog for me that was called The True Life Adventures of Violence Girl. And it was like, okay, this is a message from him. You can do this. So if I had thought of it as like writing a book, I don't think I would have done it. But because I had been blogging, and I only had to blog one page, I only had to write one page a day, it was like, oh yeah, I can write one page a day.
And that's how it started too.
That's how it started, yeah.
Wow, that's a good exercise too, to constantly be putting your mind to work every day, like even if it's just one paragraph, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Wow, and then it's because eventually it starts adding up.
And eventually you have a book, yeah. So anybody that's like thinking of writing out there, just like write a little bit every day. Yeah. That's how all, I mean, every book starts with the first paragraph, right? Exactly. So get started. Get started.
Yeah.
So, and for any writers out there, I did have a special thing that I did. I would start writing in the morning, and then I would not allow myself to eat lunch until I had enough, like a whole page to post. Yeah. So I get really hungry. So.
And it's good because that's some type of discipline that you're putting on yourself, right?
Yeah,
and you feel proud of
finish, yeah.
Mm-hmm, and you feel that pride, right, when you do it.
Yeah.
Along with the hunger, but the pride is
satisfaction at the end, yeah. You're satisfied in two ways. Yeah.
And so you were saying that your husband is very supportive, and
yes,
that's amazing. And how do you think it's a very common nowadays compared to how it was back, let's say, in the 70s, that men or women would support their spouses or their partners?
I think women traditionally supported their husbands, but I think now it's becoming more. I think we're demanding it too. It's like, if you want to go out with me, you better give me something back, because I'm not here just to service you.
Very well said. That's true. Yeah. We gotta respect each other in every way possible. And wow, that got me teary-eyed. I don't know why. Nicaragua. Tell me about your trip, because you have a relationship with this country. That you spent some time there. After I was involved in the punk scene for a while, I became politicized through that, because I was often asked to play benefits. And at that time, it was the 80s, and Ronald Reagan had just come into power, and there was all this chaos going on in Central America. And I had I had gone back to school, and I'd started teaching. I was working with kids that were largely from Mexico, but also Central America. And I realized, you know what, there's a lot going on down there that I don't know about, and I know that I'm not getting the whole story. At the same time, I was teaching with an emergency credential, which means I wasn't fully credentialed. So I was still going to school, and one of my professors assigned the book Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which talks about a kind of education where you are basically indoctrinating kids with the values of the dominant class, and you're not really teaching kids to think. You're not teaching them critical thinking skills. You're not teaching them to have dialogue and respect other cultures and respect other points of views. You're just, telling them, memorize these facts. These are our founding fathers. These are the important things that you need to memorize and spit and bubble in later, right? And that's still how we teach, by the way. And Paulo Freire said that those are structures that are intentionally put in to support the status quo. That's no accident, So we as a people, we need to demand an education that teaches kids to think, and adults, so that we can question our leaders, so that we can call them to the mat when they're not doing what we want them to do, and feel like we're being patriotic when we do that. We're being patriotic when we question, not when we follow and memorize. So, thank you for your snaps. Actually, can we put the picture on of Alicia in Nicaragua, por favor? And I want to ask you about this picture. So
Oh, yeah.
who is who in this picture? This is amazing. This is look at this.
Actually, these are people. These three people that are holding the sign were people that were from the Escuela Nica. We were volunteers. We're all Americans, and that's me on the end with the fashionable sunglasses. But this is a march that we were doing against the. There were like $100 million that were being put aside for the Contras to fight the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. And there were marches all over Nicaragua because the Sandinistas, the first thing they did when they got into Nicaragua was to have a huge literacy campaign. So the nation was largely illiterate, and they organized volunteers to go out into the fields and teach the campesinos to read. And that was the reason that I had gone to Nicaragua, because I was a teacher, and I was learning about literacy, and I wanted to see how this literacy campaign how it worked, because it was modeled after it was actually Paulo Freire had been consulted to work on this literacy campaign, so I wanted to go and experience it, and it was life-changing for me. You know, I went down there thinking, I'm gonna give these people my time, my expertise. I felt like I was, you know, being the person that was doing something for someone else, when in fact, I went down there and I had my eyes open, and I realized I learned a lot of things about myself, and it was a humbling experience. It was an experience of like realizing I've been indoctrinated. I need to open up my mind, and I need to see what's really happening in my own country, and not come down here and think like I'm doing something good for someone else. I need to do something good in my own country because we're messed up. So, and we're really messed up right now, guys. We're really. Yeah.
Mind-blowing how these times we're living in. And well, you know me, I like to be positive. Do you think that the positive from these crazy times that we're living in now is inspiring some type of union amongst at least people that believe in some
Yeah, I think
sort of
so.
logic?
I think people are much more aware. I think we're like constantly, you know, trying to. I mean, I know I have been more involved in like marches and petitions, and you know, like trying to make sure that we don't get blown up or ruin our environment permanently, or like, you know, just fighting back. If all we do is fight back and minimize the damage, that's a start. I mean, I would love to just do everything we can to, you know, wait, let me just, I have an image in my mind. I was in East LA yesterday, and I was driving down Wabash, and I saw a mural with a masked wrestler, and he's got Donald Trump down on the mat, you know, and he's like, got him in a headlock. And I just thought, that's us. That's us. If we work together, we can like get that guy and make him bend to our will, or get him out completely. But I really believe that. I believe in the power of the people. I believe in us. So.
Because if you don't start believing, then who else is going to start believing, right?
Right.
It starts with yourself, and it could be anything from you know, from a little grain of seed of writing in your notebook, or even cooking one of your favorite dishes, right? Or just staying active, right? Not letting it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you don't have to be one certain type of activist. You don't have to be like an artist, you know, that writes political songs. You don't have to be a writer that's writing an article. You don't have to be the person that's marching out in the, you know, at the protests. You don't have to do all those things. You can do one or two now and then. But the important thing that you can do every day is talk to the people around you, because those are people that you actually have power with, you know, your coworkers, your family, you know, just talk to them and work the conversation to like, did you vote that way? Why did you vote that way? What is happening? Do you think this person is doing what you thought they were gonna do? You know, like, open the door. And I feel like it's not enough to like, you know, go on Facebook and say, this guy is an idiot. Why did you vote for them? And then you can't troll the people that whose minds you want to change, because you're not going to change them that way. You need to have dialogue. And that is something that I learned from Paulo Freire. If you want to change minds, you need to go open-minded, and you need to have dialogue, and it has to be, a two-way street. So even, I lived in Arizona for a few years, and during the time that I was in Arizona, I had friends who were politically conservative, who I had to open conversations with, and it was difficult. And but something that I reminded myself was, it's like, when we're not having a political conversation, these people are really nice. They're like really like they've done great things for me and my family, and I need to listen. I need to talk to them as human beings who have a different point of view. So that's how you can be a different kind of activist without being public about it.
Yeah, not everything's so black and white, right? Just
Yeah.
because someone has a certain belief of something means that, oh, well, I'll never be able to be their friend now. No, it's good to start dialogue, like you were saying, and try to understand at least the other perspective. Because if they see that you're trying to understand their perspective, they'll try to understand yours, right? And it's healthy that way. I mean, maybe you might not end up ever understanding, but at least there's some type of movement and struggle to get there.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't ever want to be in a position where like, we're going to we're going to get power, and then we're going to like subjugate you, because you don't think like us. Yeah. We don't want to do that. Right? We don't want to put other people down and force them to think what we think, because then we're just as bad.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we want to open dialogue and like listen to different points of view, and do it the hard way, like change minds, like take your time.
Yeah, exactly. It's all time, right? It's a long process. And well, I wonder if it's okay for by you if I put on a video speaking of marches. Okay, White Justice. It's a very inspiring video that I saw that I don't want to give away too much, but you guys will see. And thank you.
Thank you.
Dang. So when you did that to the police, when you went up to them and started singing in their face and looking right into the dead eye socket, right into their eyes, what did you feel like were they moved by it? Were they mad by it? Or what was their reaction?
They were just staring at me. They were like, who's that crazy lady, and why is she yelling at us? But I think the thing that really moved me was that we were in front of the detention center, and they were clicking against the, I guess they click coins or something against the windows, and you can hear them. So they were listening to us. So at the end, you heard a bunch of clicking, like that, and it was moving, because I felt like we're connecting with them. They know they're supported. They know we're here. So that was powerful.
And what was the being in the march like?
I always am energized by being in. I'm like the person that loses her voice by the end of the night. I'm like, I know. I used to be a cheerleader, so I'm like, come on, let's go. For a very short time.
And this, because I know you encourage, dialogue. And my question that I couldn't help ask: were there any cons in the march? Were
there any what?
Cons of being part of the march.
Of being in the march?
Uh-huh.
I had to go to the bathroom at some point, and it was no. That's it. Now everything else is a pro. It's like really great. I went to the women's march in Washington as well, and that was an amazing feeling. I felt like I almost couldn't move. It was so crowded, that it was almost scary how crowded it was, but it was so powerful. And again, the bathrooms were an issue, because there was like many more people than they anticipated, and I think there was it was amazing, so empowering that, I really feel that women are just coming into their own, we're just getting a feel of what it's like to organize and have power. Like that was a taste of it. And I think I think we're gonna feel a lot more of it. And I just saw Lisa Flores over there. I didn't know you were here, because we talked about her earlier, and I didn't acknowledge you, and I was talking about you, and I was looking at you. I'm sorry. I apologize.
My mother would say apologies. I told you this yesterday, but you tell me your thoughts on this saying that apologies are only for killers and rapists.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know, unless they're dead.
And so, what's the big difference between playing live and being in the studio for you?
Well, I love both things. I am in the studio right now. I am recording with my producer, Lisa Flores. Yeah. And Eva Gardner up there played on a few songs, too. I feel very, very fortunate to have had her. And I don't know if my friend Sharif is here, but he played guitar. I don't know. He said he was coming. He lied to me. But anyway, I write songs, and then what I like to do is try and match up the songs to like each musician's style. What I think, like, oh, I think this suits them, or I think they would do a great job on this song. So I love being in the studio because I feel like I have complete control, or almost complete control. Like I have a lot more control over what the music sounds like. And I love being able to do that because when I'm on stage, I'm totally out of control. When I'm on stage, it's all about connecting with the audience, and it's all about delivering the message and feeling like they're getting it, you know? Like you. You're the same way, I feel. Like you, like, oh, you're like grabbing them, and you're like, you're coming with me. Right?
Yes, but it's also good to have the band back you up, and you know that you can trust them.
Yeah, you can trust them.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like, they got you. Yeah.
Ale, she's right there, the drummer of Butcherettes.
Yeah.
She backs me up.
Yeah. You have to have a band you can trust, and they got you. If you go off, you know, like my poor band, oh my God. How many times have I just like gone on too long? Like, okay, I'm gonna go out in the audience and I'm gonna sing with you and I'm gonna dance over there, and then come back and they're like, where did she go? How long do we have to play this? You know, it's like, but yeah, it's good. It's good to have a band you can trust. So yeah, there's both. I need both things. I need the connection with the audience because that really fuels my, like, it fills my tank. You know, I feel like that's the payoff. But I also, as a songwriter, I love to hear my songs the way I imagine them. So being able to do that, make them sound pretty on the record and then mess them up live, it's a treat. It's the best of both worlds. Well, you want to give me a bruise like yours, huh?
We have to match.
Isn't that a pretty bruise? Yeah.
Can you guys see it from all the way in the back? Damn. But it doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't hurt. I was playing a show, and I was standing up like this, and then I just went like, boom, but fast. Right now I cheated. This is, yeah. Like
it was excitement, right?
Yeah, excitement, not anger, because, you know, sometimes you see one person. It just takes one person, right, on stage to be like this, and it can ruin your whole night. What do you think of that when you see that one guy, like, or person? I don't know. I gave it away.
Yeah, I've had that actually. I wrote about it in my book where I like actually swatted at him and like got his glasses and crunched them up and stepped on them. Yeah, I'm not nice. I know, you know, sometimes people think I'm a nice person. They're like, oh, Alice Bagg, she's, you know, an older woman, she's wise. And I'm like, I am such, yeah, I don't know.
You're humble.
But I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and you don't ever have to wonder whether I'm speaking my mind, because I am. Yeah.
No room, no time for BS, right?
No time for BS.
Life is too short. Life is way too short. And that's why you don't think twice about confronting someone if they're, because why go to a show and then make me the party pooper? Why spend that negative energy, right? I can never understand. I mean, would you ever do that? Go to a show and just
I don't know.
You try to understand. You try to understand when maybe he had a bad day or something.
I don't know. I remember having a show once where like the person was so excited that they pulled down their pants and pulled out their equipment. You told me about this, Frank. It was at the Starwood, and I was playing a punk concert, and my friends pushed this guy out because he was starting to masturbate in front of the stage. Yeah. But we, like early punks, had a powerful alliance of women with stiletto heels who pogoed furiously like goddesses over anyone that would get in our way.
Yeah, because if you're silent about it, then there probably won't. It would keep happening.
Yeah, I didn't even know about it until afterwards.
Okay,
You know,
okay,
they took care of it.
Yeah.
They took care of business.
And speaking of the punk shows, I'm going to put one video.
Okay.
From it's called From the Troubadour, 1978, February 5th.
Okay.
And,
can I just say something before
yeah,
we
of
put this on? 'Cause I don't know if everybody knows that the reason that we wore bags on our heads when we came out is because my first band was called The Bags, and we wore bags on our heads. Yeah. So that was our little tribute to that. So now you're going to see the bags at the Troubadour without the bags on our heads. Oh my God. Thank you for That is difficult for me to watch.
And I want to ask you why? Why?
I don't know. I just don't like seeing myself. I actually like myself better as older and more. I feel like I'm more confident and more powerful and more in control. And I feel like when I was younger, I was just kind of like, you know, like exactly like you see me, like kind of like, you know, and not fully aware of my surroundings. I think in that particular night was a crazy night where we actually shut down the Troubadour, or not really. We didn't shut it down. They shut us down. They like locked us in, and there was a big fight. Do you know this story?
No, please tell us.
The story is that it starts a few days before at this deli, Cantor's Deli, and I was sitting with some friends of mine, or we were waiting to get a table, and my friend knew Tom Waits, and I didn't know who he was or like that he was a celebrity or anything. So she's like, my friend is talking to this dorky guy, and she introduced me, and I said, hey, you know what? We're playing a show at the Troubadour, and then I didn't think anything else of it, and then she told me and my boyfriend that he thought he loved you, Alice. You were great, you know, and but he didn't like Nikki. He said Nikki was a dipshit, and Nikki was really pissed off. Nikki was my boyfriend, and he's also the guy that you see playing drums. So Nikki was pissed off for a day, and then I didn't think anything of it. But then the day came when we were going to play the Troubadour. And Tom Waits showed up, and like he's like sitting there, and these are the days when you have like your concert, and you had like long tables where people had to buy like usually a 2-drink minimum, and you'd sit at the front of the stage and watch your band, and a bartender would come. I mean, a person would come and serve you your drinks, and Patricia and I were like looking and seeing, oh my God, he's here. What are we gonna do? And Nikki's like, I'm gonna call him out as soon as I get up there. So it's like, don't start. I'm gonna say something. So at the beginning of this film, actually, of this like, it's this document. No, it's not a documentary. It's some person was in the audience filming, and you see Nikki come up, and he gets the microphone and he says, like, Tom Waits called me a dipshit behind my back, and I think he's a bloody cunt. And and then we go into our set, and the punks who were not going to pay $2 to sit at the front of the stage start throwing the tables and chairs in the heap in the back of the you saw there's no tables and chairs in the front, right? You saw because I jumped off and started dancing. So they had thrown all the tables and chairs to the back, and except for one table at the front of the stage where Tom Waits and his posse were sitting down like, we're gonna hold our ground. And they did. They stayed there the whole night, just kind of like glaring at us. And then when the show was over, I was actually kind of nervous because I thought, oh my God, are they going to charge us for things that got broken or what's going to happen? They emptied the house, but they locked us in. They said, you guys cannot leave yet. So we were really nervous, but all they wanted was to form a circle around Tom Waits and Nikki Beat so that they could have a fight. So, yeah, all that. So that, and you know, Patricia and I are like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? We're trying to get out, and the punks are outside. You know, you see their hands like sticking in the door, and they're trying to pull it open. It's very dramatic, and it was a crazy night. So anyway, punk bands didn't play at the Troubadour for a while after that.
Oh my God. And so that basically all that was in your mind when you were on stage, or in that moment?
No,
There's
that
like,
moment, I think I was just kind of like
over it.
I hate seeing that clip. It's just like, oh God, I look so out of it.
Because basically no one at that time was doing what you were doing, fishnets and then jumping into the stage. It was unheard of. Did you feel it sometimes, looking at it back then now, that, hey, in a way, you were courageous, and
I think there were women that were doing that. I mean, I think of like the Runaways. I think Cherie Curry wore like corsets and stuff like that. And I think that was probably, like, I came from a background where groupies were like, you know, they were glamorized. So I think I had a little bit of that, like, oh, I'm gonna be sexy on stage, and you know, and then, you know, I don't know, I never really achieved that. I never really achieved what I went out to achieve. I think when I first wanted to be a singer, I thought, I'm gonna go on stage and I'm gonna sing pretty and I'm gonna be glamorous. And of course, I'd go on stage and I'm like, and I'd be all sweaty, and paper bags were stuck on my face, and my fishnets were tearing. You know, I'd fall on the ground, and then my stockings would be torn, and there'd be blood coming down. You know, so it's like, so I never.
The duality of it, though, right?
I know, it's like
powerful. Yeah, and so when you would sometimes get hurt on stage afterwards, would you regret it? Be like, oh, why am I always hurting myself on accident? Or what's going on? Or would you just, you know, be proud of it?
No, I never even noticed it when I was. I don't know if you have that experience where you don't even know you got hurt because you're full of adrenaline, right?
Sometimes I would get hurt, but so at the time I had some bandmates that would be like, you know what, you should do that some more. You should, you know what, hit yourself harder, because they thought I was doing it on purpose or something. And I was like, yeah, that's punk rock. Yeah. The more blood, the better. And then in the moment I was like, oh, okay. But then I realized, I hope they really care about me.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, there's that side to it too, right? Yeah.
What if I do? Why don't I do it to you? That's good showmanship too. Yeah.
And so basically, your sister Yolanda is a big inspiration.
Yeah.
And when you were little, you looked up to her because she also knew a lot about music, and she passed away.
Yes.
And if she were here now, do you think a lot about, like, oh, I would want to tell her this, I want to...
She and I had a very, very traditional sort of, you know, big sister, little sister, and I just kind of looked up to her, and I think I always wanted her to be proud of me, but I don't know that she would even, like, understand what I do or why I do it, but I still, you know, I was in a band when she was still alive, and she never really, like, she never got into it. It was not her thing, but that's okay. It doesn't matter because I still loved her, and I still feel like we were still connected.
And supportive of each other.
Yeah, and totally supportive of each other.
Because you don't always have to understand as long as you're there for each other.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And sorry for mentioning that heavy theme about passing away, but I think it's something. I mean, do you agree that's something we should talk about more as a community? Death.
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's like my sister's death was like my parents. You kind of expect that your parents are going to die, but my sister died very young, so it was really hard on me because she had cancer, and I don't think it was like 3 months from the time I found out she was sick to when she passed away. So it was like hard. Yeah.
And your mother, she worked for an organization for charity for cancer.
Yeah.
And this was before your sister had cancer.
Yeah. My sister was actually my half sister, and her father had cancer, and that's why my mother always volunteered for the American Cancer Society. Yeah.
And that's relating to the people that would go in to your house because they weren't used to different neighborhoods, right, or something.
Yeah,
And they went, and I don't want to. Is it okay if I mention it?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So because a very elegant lady went into Alice's house because her mother worked for a cancer organization for charity. And so this very, very beautiful lady, right? Elegant with she walked in, but her mother, before the lady got into the house, made sure that the house was very clean. She took out the best the china teacups, made everything very, very nice for this lady. And as soon as she walks in, her mom was a little nervous, right? A little even excited. You were even excited, right? Very nervous too. Oh, there's this, no one comes to our house. Like, well, this is someone that's coming here. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, what happens after that?
So my mom's trying to impress this lady and woman sitting down, and all of a sudden I'm standing on the side and I see a cockroach walking up the woman's leg, and I'm like, ah! So.
And what did you do? What did
I'm
you do?
Hey, you got a cockroach coming up here. So the woman's, she left. My mom was heartbroken.
Yeah, but that's the part I didn't understand. Why would she leave? You'd always have to roll it with the punches.
I know,
there's
right?
a cockroach.
Like,
let's stay here.
Yeah, well, that's what we say, because but I think some people are like, no way. I mean, it's funny because also, like, when people have memories, we used to live there was a group of punks who lived at this place called the Canterbury, and they write so much about, like, oh, there were so many roaches. I'm like, I grew up with more roaches than that. It's like, but it's like, it's perspective, right? Like,
exactly.
you have to compare it to something. So to me, it was like, not a big deal.
Yeah, it's all about perspective.
Cockroaches don't bite.
Yeah, exactly. They're actually very beautiful, right? Wouldn't you guys say? Okay, we wouldn't go that far. We wouldn't go for that far. Okay. Okay, so taking it a little bit to a lighter side, because I guess this conversation may be a little bipolar, but that's basically what it is. There's so many dualities, going from death to your love for Archie.
Oh my God! Wow.
I want to just between us in this room. Archie was one of my favorite comics. What made you gravitate towards Archie?
I think my father was a big reader, so he would read these Mexican Western novelettes, and he would buy them at a used bookstore. And then the next week he would go back and return them and trade them in for new ones. So in order to take me along and keep me entertained, he was like, you can get these used comic books. So I would get Archie and and I started getting into novelas de amor. And I did also read Memín Pinguín. So that's going to be controversial there. But and Betty and Veronica and Little Dot and Dotland and Hot Stuff and all those good comic books. Little Lotta, Richie Rich. I'm just name dropping now. And so you had a love for comics. Right now today, what comics are you still into comics today, or a little less? I don't read comics anymore. I was a big Mad Magazine fan for a while too, but I don't really read comics that often anymore.
You broke up with them.
No, I'd still pick them up if they were around. I'd still read them. I did watch the Archie series, or the Riverdale. Yeah. Did you watch that?
I was obsessed with Archie. Every day after school, I'd go to the store, get my I don't want to say the brand of the food. I'd get this delicious junk food, but not delicious now anymore. And then the comic Archie. So that was very, I felt like a sister moment right now. So basically, you had to face a lot of ethnocentrism. How do you deal with that nowadays when you have to deal with that?
I just don't deal with it. I just like kind of, I give back whatever I get. If someone's like cool with me, I'm good with them. And if they like, I'm not a very patient woman. So, yeah, no, I'm not. Do I seem like it?
You're being very patient with me, right?
No. Yeah, I mean, you're like so sweet. You're like, I know. And I met her. I thought she's gonna be like scary, right?
Really?
She's so intense, and she is just so nice.
Thank you.
So you can ask me anything. I'll answer
Okay,
anything
good,
you
good.
want. Yeah.
Thank you. So,
So-
you according to you, you're a person of little patience.
So what sorts of things are you?
Yeah. Well, how do you? Because I imagine you're more patient now. How do you acquire that patience? Because sometimes when I get angry, without double thinking it, I hit a wall and I end up hurting myself.
Ouch.
How do you jump from that point to just not doing that?
I guess it depends on what kind of anger it is. I mean, I try and like serious stuff that bugs me. I write music about, or I try and do something creative with it, because I think energy is just, like if you can wait till you get home, you can write, or you can paint, or you can do something with that energy, or you can write a letter or do something. But sometimes I can't wait till I get home. And sometimes, like there's countless stories in my family about my little outbursts, like the woman at Costco who got too close to me with her shopping cart. I was like, really? She was like, every time I stopped, she would bump me just a little bit, until I finally turned around and just shoved it at her. And it's like, so, I guess I could, if I had the patience, I could have waited and, gone home and written a song about the woman at Costco, but no, just had to deal with it then. Yeah, but actually, my friend Frank, who is here also, she and I have a band where we write about stuff that bugs us, and it's mostly political stuff. Yeah.
It's a good way to vent too.
Yeah.
And you're not paying for the therapy also.
I know.
No, it's good, right?
Actually,
that's what it is.
I'm a firm believer that punk rock is like the poor person's therapy. Yeah.
Because it's so accepting too, regardless of where you're from, and that's what I always loved about punk music as well. And I remember reading something that you said that the LA punk scene in the East LA punk scene, it was very accepting of anyone, especially women, and very encouraging. Do you still feel that it's like that today?
I feel like the places where I go play, where I'm invited, it's like, I feel like I'm invited to those places because they are inclusive. And I don't know if there's like some secret, skinhead club that's very like racist and macho, but I don't know of it. To me, it seems like punk has gone full circle and it's become, again, like queer and brown, and not just brown, but all colors, right? I feel like it's inclusive and it's shaped by people from all over this city, which is a very diverse city. So, yeah. So I feel like everybody is putting, it's putting punk back to where it should be, which is like messing with the status quo. You don't want to mirror it. So if you see a band that's just doing what the last band did, and they, have perfect punk rock hairdos, and they're wearing their little uniforms, and, I don't think that's punk. I don't think that's very punk. I mean, I know some people say, like, I've heard people say, who gets to say what's punk? You know, like anything can be punk. And I disagree. I don't think anything can be punk. Can Donald Trump be punk? I don't think so.
Ooh, I almost spit that out.
Oh, sorry.
That's amazing. Yeah, because it's very easy to say, oh yeah, that's punk. And then eventually the word like love, right? It starts getting worn out. And or do you think the word feminism is being worn out? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think the word feminism is being strengthened and redefined. It's being expanded. I was walking my dog yesterday, and I saw my neighbor who happens to be a guy, and he had a shirt with like glittery silver letters that said feminist, and I'm like, I love your shirt. And he's like, yes. And so I was really thrilled that it's like, you know, that finally the message has come across that we're not trying to like take anything away from anybody else. There's not a lack of rights. Sorry, these are my rights and you can't have them. There's enough rights for all of us, and we just want equal rights, and we just want equal pay. Thank you.
No, thank you. I wanna. Oh, I'm sorry. I get so emotional, and sometimes I feel very ashamed of that, and sometimes I blame maybe the way I was raised. You know, like, oh no, keep your emotions in. No hagas un show, or you know that saying, no hagas un show, tere, ya no. But it's
you're
good
with
to
us.
be. Okay.
You can't do anything.
And how do you do it? How do you wear your emotion? How do you speak so fluidly about your feelings? Is it a process? I mean, of course it's a process, but tell me, how do you do it?
I think for me it's just I didn't always feel like I could just say anything I wanted. I feel like there's been times when I feel that I'm guarded because I'm afraid somebody will misinterpret what I'm gonna say. And now I just say it, and I hope that, like, you know, that people will keep listening if they didn't understand why I said something, that maybe they'll listen long enough to where they'll figure out who I am and why I said what I said. And if not, that they'll ask so I can explain it. So I just have more faith in humanity. And I think like when I was young, I used to think that people were stupid. And I don't think that anymore. Why did I think that? Because I think I felt like people didn't understand me. And I felt like, I'm really cool, I'm really smart, I'm really talented. My dad told me that, you know? And you don't get it, so you must be dumb. So I feel like now, and I think I probably projected that. You know, I probably thought, like, you're not gonna like me, you're not gonna get me. And that's exactly what I got back. And now I expect that people are gonna get me, and that people, if they, you know, aren't sure about something I said, that they will ask me, and as a result, that's exactly what I get. I get people who get me, and I get people who are not afraid to ask, and I feel connected and much happier.
Because you're doing yourself that service.
Yeah,
because it's coming from within you first, not to look for pleasing of other people. And I guess what I want to ask is, when do you realize I want to stop pleasing people?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I really ever wanted to please anybody except my father. You know, because my father had such high expectations of me. I think there was a certain point at which I decided that I wanted to be my own hero, that I wanted to live a life that I could be proud of, that I wanted to, like, look at the things I did and say, yeah, you know what, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't just fall into that. I didn't just, like, you know, like, I mean, just that video we saw where I'm just kind of doing this. I think sometimes people live their life that way, or you're just kind of channeled into other things. And I think there's been times when I've led my life that way, where I've just let myself be transported into situations that I didn't want to be in. And I find that the more I am involved in my actions, and the more I'm in the driver's seat, the better I feel about myself. You know, and I know I can't control every situation, and I know that there's going to be things that I do that I'm not happy with, but at least I'm doing it with my eyes open, and I'm making a deliberate effort to think everything through.
Because if you can count on yourself, then that means other people can count on you.
Yeah.
And vice
Yeah.
versa. Yeah. That's really, yeah. It's a work in progress with me, but you're an
It's
inspiration.
a work in
so thank
progress
you.
with all of us. You know, we're all a work in progress. And, you know, I think the thing is that we all have to, like, I have a song that I just wrote on my new record called Blueprint, where I'm like, check the blueprint, you know? So you want to check, like, where are you headed with this structure that you're constructing, you know? Where are you going in the right direction? Every now and then you should look at where you're going.
Yeah, make
Like,
those questions,
yeah.
right? Be aware of those questions at the very least. And I want to put a video on. Okay, this is actually it linked me to you when I was very little. I was with these
Are
these
you
cool
calling
people.
me old, Terry?
No.
I am old. I'm happy. I'm happy of being old. I like it. I recommend it, you guys. Join me.
And, after school, I snuck in. Well, my mother won't like this story, but I snuck into a room full of these punk boys, and they were watching Decline of Western Civilization, and you were on the TV, and I saw you, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's I didn't know that even existed, because my only source of music education was the Spice Girls, just to make it clear. So for me, seeing this was like a religious revelation, and I would like to put that on, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. You think I sound like Sporty Spice?
When I saw it, I was just like, wow, why in the world am I finding out about this now? You know, in my head, and then I just want to say thank you for that, because imagine just only having that one influence. You're like, oh yeah, the Spice Girls, and that's about it. That's all I listen to. But no, but that was a rude awakening, as they call it, where you're just like slapped in the face. And the real deal, it was this raw energy. And I wanted to ask you, because, you know, perspectives are sometimes insane, right? It could be, someone could be completely enamored by it. But what was your perspective when being in that moment? Or what was the process like? How did this come about?
God. I am not a huge fan of this documentary. I feel very privileged to have been in it, and I'm grateful that I'm in it. But I was very... it was a very difficult time for my band, and I think we broke up just a few months after this. And it was also a time of transition for punk. It had been a very small punk rock community in Hollywood that was full of weirdos and full of, like, you know, misfits from all over the city, was changing and taking on a very male-dominated, very jock-flavored feel, you know, and I didn't like it. And I think in this particular documentary, it's called The Decline because to me, it's like, oh yeah, it's the decline of punk rock. You know, it's like you're seeing it as it's like falling apart. And I think in those days, if you had asked me, you know, what's going on with punk, I would have said, punk's dead, man. It happened in '77 and now it's over. But it's not true, you know. And I mean, the thing about this is that I have perspective now, you know, and I can see, like, oh, a bunch of people who hadn't heard of punk, you know, all over the United States and maybe other countries as well, got their introduction from this film. And you know, and hopefully they were able to make something positive and more creative. I think there's a few people in this film that are very, very talented and that represent the original scene. And there are people there that are very talented and represent this new hardcore scene. But there were a large number of bands that were really like the pioneers of punk in Hollywood that were not documented. And to me, that's sad too, because people who consider themselves punk fans may never hear of, you know, the Screamers or, thank you, or the Weirdos or the Controllers, or, you know. You have something to say, to add, Frank? I know Frank is here, so I feel like the plugs. The plugs are not in that. Yeah. Oh my God.
And so, speaking about documenting these bands, you've been keeping an ongoing interview project called The Women in LA Punk Archives. What's going on with that right now? Tell me about it.
God, that was a few years ago. Okay. I decided that I needed to have women tell their own story because it was the same sort of thing where I'd have people want to interview me about like the early punk scene, and they'd say, but can you talk mostly about Darby Crash, or can you tell me a little bit about, you know, like this particular, you know, group of people that they felt like those were the important people. And I'm like, what about all these other people that were involved that helped, without whom punk wouldn't exist? So I decided to interview the women who had been part of the early movement, because I really feel without the participation of those women, punk would not have been as challenging, as exciting, as diverse, as different and original as it was. The reason that punk is really meaningful is because there were all these groups of people who had not had a voice before, and they had original voices. And you hear that. You hear that in punk. It's different than what came before. So it happened, and all of a sudden, nobody was writing about it. We were just being erased from history. So luckily, there was the ability to, I mean, we can now write our own stories. There's an audience for it. You know, there's not. When I was growing up, it was a time where you had to depend on like a published book or a published magazine to tell the story. And if you were not fortunate enough to have somebody write about you, you were kind of fucked, you know. And now we can all write our own stories, and we can have blogs, and we can have zines, and we can, you know, make sure that we document ourselves so that we feel like you didn't create this. This is all of us, you know.
I don't want to. I hope I'm not assuming I'm speaking on your behalf, but thank you for that. You know, if only more people did that, we wouldn't be erased so easily. So thank you, Alice.
Oh, thank you. You don't have to thank me, but I appreciate it, Terry.